Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our webinar today, The Future of Employee Listening, Pairing Human Expertise with AI to Drive Improvement. We're delighted you can join us for this session. My name's Kate. I head up the consultancy team at People Insight, and I'm delighted today to be joined by my colleague Gareth, our Chief Technology Officer. Hi, Gareth.
Hello, and we're not being shy, but Teams have done an update and therefore cameras aren't working. So normally you see our smiling faces.
Yes, sorry if you can't see our faces. So we have 45 minutes together today. I wanted to just start with some quick housekeeping just before we get into the main content. Firstly, just to confirm that this webinar is being recorded and we will share that recording with you all after the session. Secondly, we would love to hear from you, so please do use the chat functionality to ask questions and to react, and I saw a reaction earlier, so thank you for that. We'll make sure that there is time to answer any questions that you have towards the end of the session, so please do keep them coming. And also remember that we are here to help, both on this webinar and afterwards, so do feel free to reach out to us at any time. So I just wanted to share a very quick introduction to People Insight for the benefit of those who may not know us. Our mission is to be the most actionable employee experience platform powered by people. So we offer an agile AI-powered listening platform designed to capture real insight and drive meaningful action at scale. And behind our platform is a team of expert consultants and survey specialists, professionals with deep experience in designing effective surveys, interpreting data, and guiding leaders to create lasting change. We're really passionate about ensuring that employee listening leads to real positive impact across organisations. So by combining the strength of our platform with the expertise of our people, we give organisations the clarity and support they need to take effective action. Privileged to work with a wide range of fantastic organisations, including those that you can see on screen now, and to support them to listen better to drive meaningful change. And from our experience of helping organisations to listen better, one thing is very clear. Employee listening has always been and should remain a deeply human experience. When people share feedback, they're not just offering data points, they're sharing emotions, frustrations, ideas, and lived realities that shape what work feels like day to day. Interpretation requires human judgement, empathy, and understanding of context, and that's something that technology can't replicate. At the same time, AI is accelerating really quickly. It gives us new ways to process information, and it removes some of the heavy lifting that's traditionally slowed organisations down. So this opportunity isn't about replacing the human side of listening, it's using AI to enhance it. And through today's session, we'll talk about that partnership, human expertise working alongside AI capability. The technology speeds things up and broadens our field of view, but it's humans that bring the interpretation, the nuance, and the connection that turns insight into meaningful change. So as we explore the role of AI in employee listening, remember it's not a swap, it's a combination. And with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Gareth, who's going to get us thinking about where each of us is on our AI journey.
I like that, Kate. It's not a swap, it really isn't. I think, yeah, it's not only field of vision depth, it's depth and breadth as well. So for me, I think there's probably, I think this chart builds right to left in some respects, a bit like the American continent, you're moving from the east coast to the west. So I think there's probably three camps potentially. It'd be good to hear where everybody thinks they are or their organisations are in terms of these three categories or camps. AI settlers on the right hand side, cautious adopters who are sort of standing back a little bit, seeing how it plays out. Those that are exploring, those that are open and curious to see what's happening, and those that are pioneers. I suppose in some respects you can think of it as a multi-dimensional aspect, which is how frequently do you use AI? Daily, hourly, weekly, monthly, never, and what you're doing with it as well in terms of the complexity of the task, and possibly on another axis, which is the understanding of the technology. So it'll be good to hear. I think Ryan's going to pop up a poll in a second to see where we think they or their organisations are in terms of pioneer, explorer, or settler. It'd be good to see what people think about the current landscape. So please do poll away in terms of giving us your thoughts on that. But Before we go any further, let's have a little look at the continuous cycle. So can you just walk us through what you see as the listening continuous cycle?
I'm just being curious about this poll though that's come
Yeah,
through.
I know.
Very
Me too.
clearly.
It's fascinating. Comes up right in the middle of the screen, doesn't it?
Yeah. Lots of explorers in the audience.
Lots.
So great to see you. Right. So yes, let's talk about the listening cycle. I think it does work well when we think of employee listening as part of a continuous cycle rather than one-off activities. So there are really three core pillars that we want to think about. The first part here is listening. It's about capturing feedback and making sure that we're asking the right questions at the right moments. If people feel genuinely heard, they're much more likely to share their ideas, their concerns, and their insight that can shape meaningful improvement. The second part is about analysing, so making sense of what people are telling us. And this is sometimes where it's very time consuming. It involves processing large amounts of data and looking for patterns and understanding not just what's being said, but why. But it's also where bias and blind spots can creep in without us realising. The third pillar is about responding, so turning insights into conversations and actions. And this is the part that employees really feel. It's where leaders and managers take what's been learned, they talk it through with their teams, and they begin to make improvements that matter to people's day-to-day experience. So these three pillars do reinforce one another, and together they shape whether a listening strategy feels alive and connected or fragmented and reactive. So throughout the webinar, we're going to refer back to these pillars because they are a helpful anchor for understanding where AI can support us and also where the human role becomes even more important. So hopefully it sounds quite simple, but each of these pillars does come with its own challenges, and they are surprisingly consistent across different organisations. These are the points in the cycle where things can get stuck, they can slow down or drift off course. So when it comes to listening, the challenge isn't just about running surveys, it's making sure that we're asking the right questions, we're asking really meaningful questions, that we're reaching the right groups of people, and we're creating an environment where people feel safe and they feel that they can be open and honest. Without trust, listening just becomes an exercise in collecting data rather than truly understanding people. And if people don't feel that they're truly being listened to, that can result in survey fatigue. In the analysing stage, the difficulty is generally to do with the volume and the complexity of the information. So a huge amount of time can be spent trying to understand patterns in the data, trying to theme comments and to turn raw feedback into something that leaders can act on. It can be really intensive work, and it often delays the moment when insight can start to make a difference. And then in terms of responding, the challenge is translating insight into consistent action. Managers are already stretched, and without clarity on priorities or support in building action plans, it can be easy for good intentions to fade. And this is usually where momentum drops. It's not because people don't care, but it's because the approach isn't really clear enough. So I think these challenges are very important for us to consider. They help us to see where AI can support us and where human expertise becomes even more essential. The pillars gives us structure, but AI is actually changing how we're able to deliver within each of them. So I'll hand over to Gareth now to walk through our own journey with AI at People Insight and to introduce Prism.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, building on that. So this is a little look back, a little look at now, and a little look forward as well. So it's very much a journey of discovery in some respects for us. So I think it's important to take two steps back and think, well, first of all, what are we trying to do with AI? And then what are the rules of the game? So let me cover the first one first, which is, if we look at the listening cycle that Kate was just talking us through, our goal with the introduction of AI is to rebalance the allocation here. So if we assume, and these are broad brush percentages, so please don't take them as being literal numbers, but sort of indications. A lot of the effort may be traditionally around the listening phase and the analysing phase. We're leaving only a small slice to responding. What we're trying to achieve with AI is to rebalance that and to pair up the balance slightly and say, okay, could we find a way, and are we finding a way, of reducing the effort in the listening and the analysing phase, but increasing the quality? So it's not a reallocation and saying these things are less important. No, it's the amount of time we spent doing it, and can we get something AI else to deliver it, allowing us more time to respond. And that's where I think Kate's point about depth and field of vision and understanding of emotion and how we then react against that responsive bit is where we should try and stand on the shoulders of AI in some respects, so hopefully free us up to do that. If we're doing that, there are 4 things I think we need to really be, and we have been, holding ourselves to account on. If we are outsourcing effectively to AI some power and control, and there's responsibility that comes out, we need to know where it's going and what's happening here. So there are 4 things we're looking at. Fairness. So when this is probably 3.5 to 4 years ago, first started using machine learning as it was then, and training our own models, we were very conscious about making sure there was controlled, non-biased being put in there to make sure that when we train the models, that we were not putting our own sets of bias in there. And the training data was critical in terms of that. And since then, we've always looked at the outcome and saying, are we delivering balanced and fair results? The second piece is around transparency. And if you look on our help centre, we've put as much information as we possibly can do about how we're using AI, what processes we're using, where the data goes, what we're doing with it. Because for me, particularly, I think we need to be as open book as possible, because there is a sense potentially of misunderstanding or mistrust. The more we can be clear about what's happening, where it's going, and the benefits of it, the better the adoption level might be. Ethics in some respects is important, because for us, we have to take the opinion that AI will not do on our behalf. It's a way of guiding. Ultimately, no matter how far down this line we go in terms of adopting AI, we have to remain in control. We have to be able to either say we're going to reject that as a piece of information, or override the control, or override the actual action that's happening on our behalf. And I suppose I was about to say lastly, security, but quite honestly, it's probably the most important thing, because we are dealing with incredibly sensitive data here. And we're saying, well, where is that data going? What is happening to it? Are we processing it within the constraints? Yes, we are. And this is a very important thing for us, is the way that we are using AI services across the piece, is that we are partitioning that data out, so nothing can be interpreted from it unless you bring it back together again, which is where we have it. And we're fully aligned with the relevant GDPR pieces in terms of and the EU Act. So if I then look at our journey, so I'm going to go back a bit. I was quite shocked about how far back I had to go to think about when we were looking AI-wise. This is 3.5 years ago now, where we looked at what was happening in the space of running surveys and said, well, we must be able to do this in a more efficient way. And the first step that we took was, can we augment what we are doing from an efficiency perspective, looking at comments analysis? So what we then did was say, well, how can we put our own model in place, train it, as I just talked about, and then provide a way of creating comments categorization, PII redaction, sentiment analysis, and putting it into effectively a simple recording way of providing information a bit better. The sort of the analogy I would use for this, it's a bit like having a well-trained librarian that we can give vast amounts of data to, and they can go away and classify all this data. And then what it allows us to do is work out what's in the library, work out where the number of books are, where the sentiment of those books are, and provide what was a relatively complex task to do from a human perspective, to read all these comments, with possibly their own bias being injected in there, and also potentially, well, clearly cognitive overload, to then say, well, okay, we now have this information, and we can present it back in a way that can be used and built upon. And I'd be interested to hear from your experience, Kate, how that experience was when we put this in place, and what we then did to moderate it. So it'd be good to reflect back what was some time ago and get me your thoughts on that one.
Doesn't seem like 3.5 years ago, but I do remember working closely with you on this, and really checking that we were theming accurately and training, as you say, to make sure that this was something that was really very reliable. But certainly from our perspective at as consultants, the training phase was very important, and the output has really supported our work. Excuse me. It's meant that we can really spend far less time reviewing manual themes. We've got a lot more confidence, so we can now spend time really helping organisations to interpret the feedback, so to really understand the story behind the numbers, so really deep diving into the really key themes, spotting the patterns that actually matter, and it enables us now to work with clients on the right next steps far more efficiently.
Thanks. I mean, and you can sort of see how the balance and pairing changed there already. And then the next thing that we end up doing was saying, okay, that was machine learning. Great. That's a fantastic librarian that does things. What else can we do in terms of understanding these comments? So now we're moving into the world of generative AI, so a subset of where we were. And we're saying, okay, we've got these fantastic comments. We categorized them nicely. We cleaned them up. We redacted them. What else can we do with them? So this is probably shockingly around about 18 months ago, time does fly, where we said, can we summarize these comments in a way that can be reinterpreted and re-understood? So we then applied generative AI to the comments to summarize huge amounts of comments in their relevant categories with their sentiment analysis as well. And we also did two other things. We folded in the concept of being able to chat with your data, to interrogate it, to understand how I could dive into and explain more and get far more interactive with the data set that was there. And we said, we also then started to move into the world of where might we take this in terms of action inspirations. I mean, this is early stage thinking about probably 18 months ago, of being able to take the data from a qualitative perspective, analyze it, summarize it, and then ask ourselves the question, what would we give as a suitably good potential inspiration to move things forward as a change here? And for us, I guess that sort of that pairing again changed. And I think for us, it was more about the shift necessarily wasn't in the technology itself, but it's about then the time that potentially gives back to our consultants and to you about being able to interpret that data better. So again, I mean, if you can cast your mind back, Kate, 18 months, seems like a long time ago, I'd be interested in how you've seen this experience roll out over the last year and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing we should maybe mention is the fact that we did adapt this based on our feedback and client feedback in terms of the look and feel that we see today. But from our perspective, you know, this element of using AI and Prism has really been beneficial. It's really helped us to get to emerging themes and to pressure points a lot more quickly. It means that we can have deeper conversations with our clients and offer more precise recommendations that more directly drive improvement. We do get great feedback on this from our clients. I've just put a couple of lovely quotes on the screen here. So while Prism has really enabled us to drive deeper insights more quickly to leadership teams when we're presenting back survey results, it really is saving our clients a lot of time to have this functionality. We're regularly hearing how long they used to spend reading every comment and how now they can really focus on the key messages and more easily and quickly deep dive into specific hot topics. So I think that this is a really great illustration of how AI and human expertise are working well together. We've got the technology to provide our clients with the speed, the clarity and the independence, but it's the human interpretation and the organisational context that brings the depth, the insight and the kind of nuances that only people can apply. So together, this combination is helping our clients to move from understanding to improvement and to a far more connected and confident way of really interpreting the data. So given how human expertise and Prism are working well to deliver for our clients, maybe you can talk about the more recent developments that you've been focusing on, Gareth.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. So this is probably a shorter time frame window now. We're probably going back a few months and we're looking forward about a few months as well. So we're sort of, when I say current, it's a loose current because it's a little bit forwards and a little bit backwards as well. Where we are now is this. We've evolved our thinking from categorization, my librarian thought, to being able to chat with your data, to now sending across quite a lot of complex data to the AI. So we're sending across in this format. And the concept we have here is Prism Manager Action Plan. And the feedback that we're getting from clients was some of our managers find it quite intensive, information overload. Is it possible to distill down dashboards into a simpler, almost dashboard on a page format? And also potentially to see, can you explain it in a mobile format, what's happening with the survey results here? So what we have here is Prism Manager Action Plan. It is, as I say, effectively a dashboard on a page, mobile phone or laptop, doesn't matter which. And what we're doing here is we're sending across not just the qualitative comments, but we're also sending across the quantitative as well, along with how has this changed over time, so historical trends. How's it changed compared to my team versus the rest of the organisation? So in terms of relative orientation. And we're also sending across external benchmarks, so we understand where we are versus the wider piece, along with a touch of personalisation. So who the person is, size of team. And then doing that, we're then asking the AI within those controls of managers to say, well, what are the best things? What are you doing well here? And we're consciously pulling out the more positive aspects. What are you doing well here? What is your team feeling? What's your results showing you against that cocktail of data? And then also proposing 3 recommended actions on the back of it. And the idea being is that you can try and to distill the understanding and the lessons learned into a smaller, bite-sized, clearer packaging, and then proposing thought starters, actions that will then have an impact on the overall results. So effectively got to the point where we're now moving on that conversation a bit further. And I think it's important to say that Prism isn't inventing meaning here, it's just providing extra context and information and giving it what you might say as a personalized view of your team's data, and then effectively 3 practical places to start. That's where we are in terms of our process of development right now in the last 2-3 months. So, I mean, Kate, this is early stage still for us rolling this out. I think we're in the process of it. It'd be interesting to see what you felt and how generally AI and managers' interaction with AI has been received, because I know you've got quite a lot of experience, not just in this aspect here, but also in terms of 360.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it is a very new development, and we're only just rolling it out very recently with clients. But as you say, I've been doing a lot of 360 work with our clients, and Prism is also enabled for individual managers, and it's been fantastic to see the impact that has had actually. I do feel that the additional interpretation that Prism is providing to managers following a 360 is really helpful. What I'm finding when I do follow-up sessions with managers after their 360 is that they are becoming far clearer, far more quickly about their focus areas and the narrative behind their results, as well as their areas of strength. So they're getting a clearer picture more quickly. And it means that the balance of my time is very much on moving to helping managers look forward, to create clear plans and actions to drive their future success, rather than just on the data interpretation.
Thanks. I mean, and also where we are now is we're going to the next phase, which is how can we take some of what we've learned, the Prism Manager Action Plan phase, and move it into our wider suite of action planning. So what we're doing now is we're taking the same approach effectively and adding one significant change. So we are taking the same qualitative data, quantitative data, along with question polarity, historical trends, and internal benchmarks and external benchmarks. We're adding an important extra layer here, which is organization priorities, or context, as we're calling it, because context is everything. So you as organizations are all different. Your context, your values, your frameworks, your HR initiatives will all be different relative to you, the organization. We're now folding in here contextuality at an organization level. And then we've also, because it's proving very powerful in terms of the recommended actions that we are seeing in terms of the new action planning, that we've also gone back and applied it to Prism Manager Action Plan to allow better contextuality there, and also back into the chat function of comments. So we can also now have a conversation at a comments level around chatting about the organisation's context. And we're seeing that as being a very significant shift, because we're in the situation here, we're not asking the organisation to mould itself around the AI. We're saying, actually, AI, mould yourself around the organisation. And this will be a path that we will be following further around contextuality and offering more and more customization around organisation contextuality going forward. So for us, this is quite an exciting development. And the whole purpose of it is because if we can offer better contextuality, we can offer smarter actions and ultimately deliver better change. That's where we're trying to get to in this particular case. So I'm going to ask you to sort of forward think here, Kate, because we're in the early stage of releasing this. So you haven't really seen it hit the ground yet. I would be interested to see what your thoughts are of where you see this landing.
Sure. Well, I think a few things to say. The first is that this is something that clients have been asking for. So this is something that we're developing based on, known demand amongst our clients in terms of support in this area. I am actually helping you with the piloting at the moment in terms of that context piece. So I'm as interested as you to see how that works as I test it over the next couple of weeks. But certainly we do see this as a really exciting development. It does give a lot of power to the hands of managers, which is fantastic. It really helps them to delve more deeply into the topics that matter most to them and to get that guidance that matches their context. So, thinking forward, I do see this changing our role as consultants at People Insight. It's going to be focused less on data interpretation and more about coaching and guiding managers to drive change, which is really exciting for us. So thank you for sharing that, Gareth. That's really good to see. And this is a development that will be available very soon. But Gareth and his team are always thinking ahead. And I know that you're thinking further than the next few months. So it would be good to hear about where you're going next, what your sort of other thoughts are for future developments.
Yeah, thanks. So I think it'll be no surprise the word agentic will come up next as where are we going to go? But I think I'll also get back to the earlier 2 slides I had up about why are we trying to do all this? And what is this rebalancing piece we're trying to do? And also remembering back to the fairness, transparency, ethics and security piece as well. These still are guiding forces for us. In terms of where we're going to go, will be increasingly agentic based. So it's probably worth just taking a beat here and saying, what do we mean by agentic and what it isn't, perhaps? So when something's got agency, it's acting on your behalf, doing something, but it's acting within a set of parameters that you feel comfortable with, that you can control and you can set. So effectively, you're mapping out the playing area here. And it's designed fundamentally to reduce the burden. So rather than, if we come back to my analogy, you have the librarian classifying stuff with our comments, then we have increasingly generative and creating stuff, as in summarizing. We're now getting to the point of do. So we've gone from classify, create and understand into more doing. And you can see where the agency or the agentic AI will go in a second with 3 potential concepts. Well, 1 live concept going forward. But I guess it's also saying, well, what isn't it? It's because we are, to some degree, seeing a lot of things being classified as agentic when they're not. So it needs to be things that are being done. And that's the most important thing. So we are mindful that there's quite a lot of hype, I guess is the right word, around agentic AI and interoperability between different agents and multifunctional agents. You can see where all this is going to go, can't you? So I think that for us, it's right. Let's keep it simple. It's about doing things and about doing things within a controlled environment. So 3 things that we are early stage development on. First of which is an insight agent, and the concept, the thinking behind this is that one of the most examined, I think it's probably the right verb, pages or functions or reports in our current dashboard is the heat map. And there's a lot of subpopulation analysis going on there, a lot of deep diving into the different aspects within the organization. So rather than looking at the overall engagement score, and that's useful in itself, which is effectively an average, looking at the depth within it. So we're in the process of developing an insight agent, which will be given agency to go and explore certain topics in a survey based on current quantitative feedback. So when people are answering a certain way, we'll allow the AI to go and probe further to look and understand, well, what is the sentiment in that particular outlier area, whether that's a positive or negative outlier area. That's insight agent. And the second two are more around how can we design smarter surveys with input coming back in there. So, and also how can we deliver them in a more efficient, effective way as well with deployment. So we're looking at two agents that will create and design survey based on input coming elsewhere, to sort of free up the process of doing that, and also be able to push out more regular surveying where possible, more nudging in terms of deployment agents. So that's where the direction travel is for us is going. I do have a slide with 9 of these on here, but I've just sort of distilled them down to the next 3 of where we intend to be going. So that's where the sort of the flow is moving in that particular direction of where our thinking is. So it'd be interesting to sort of get your take on that and what you think about from an AI perspective of where this is going.
Yeah, it's going fast, isn't it? There's lots of exciting developments, lots of things that we're really thinking through at the moment. And I can see this changing the way that, we partner with clients. We're really going to be spending more time really thinking about behavioural shifts and cultural work that can drive real change. So that is really exciting. And I think, it sort of leads on nicely to this sort of next part that I wanted to touch on, that really it does require this partnership. It is a really important point that we've got AI now doing far more of the heavy lifting. It's really valuable, and the real impact only really happens when you pair that with the intelligence of AI with human expertise. So I think we need to keep this in mind. We can see AI now as the basis of employee listening. It's completing tasks that are essential for an effective listening cycle. It's taking the tasks that take the most time and can potentially slow organizations down. So it's wonderful to see that. But the human layer is also really important. We do need to have this judgment, this context. We need to be able to interpret what the feedback means within our own culture. And this is where leaders and managers bring the understanding of the relationships, the tone and the history and the nuance that AI simply can't replicate. So it's the difference between knowing what the data says and knowing what to do about it within your own organization. So when we've got these two together, we've got the top of the pyramid, and this is where we're really making change happen together. So this is about, the behavioural change, the conversations, the decisions and the follow through that actually move a culture forward. And this is, where we get to the outcomes that matter most. And it's only possible when we have these two other layers working really well together. We've got AI accelerating the journey, but it's the people that bring the meaning and the leadership that makes the change real. So when we're talking about the future of employee listening, it's really not about choosing between AI and human expertise. It's really about creating that partnership where each strengthens the other. AI is enabling speed and clarity, and humans are bringing the insight and the capability that turns that clarity into lasting improvement. So I'm conscious we've covered a lot of information here. I'm going to sum up with a few final thoughts, but if you have any questions for us, this is the moment to start thinking about what they might be, and perhaps using the chat so that we can use the time available to answer any questions that you have. But I am really keen that we leave you with some final thoughts and some next steps that you can take to maximise the pairing of human expertise and AI in the context of employee listening within your own organisations. So these are 3 things I'd like to finish with. And the first is about keeping listening human first. And what we mean here is about building trust and psychological safety into every touch point. So using AI to support the conversation, but ensuring that we're letting people bring the meaning, the tone, the empathy that make the feedback land well. A lot of this will come down to manager capability. So we need to be helping leaders to feel confident in the behavioural side of responding to feedback. The second part is about building AI capability with a clear purpose. So we want to make sure that we are developing confidence with AI, So we need to help managers to understand how to use AI generated insight, how to sense check it, but also where the boundary sits between what AI can draft and what humans need to decide. So it's about building that capability step by step in a way that feels safe and feels developmental. And the third is moving towards continuous listening rhythms. So rather than waiting for annual results, AI can support the building of steady cycles of listening, analysing and responding, actually. So in terms of the cycle we started with, and we've got follow-ups and nudges that can keep momentum alive between surveys. So I think these are things that you can start to explore today, and they can make a meaningful difference in terms of how organisations can turn insight into improvement. So I hope that these things and that the webinar more generally has given you some food for thought. We would love to answer any questions that you have, so please do feel free to ask any questions in the final minutes we have remaining. I also just wanted to say that we are really keen to keep exploring this conversation. The world of AI is changing all of the time. We would love just to have a good conversation with you to understand where you are, learn more about your goals, exchange ideas with you, and to help you to think about what's next for you. So if you use this QR code here, I think you can actually make an appointment directly with us to have a conversation, but we'll put our contact details in the chat for you as well. So we have a few minutes remaining. I'm just going to check the chat to see if any questions have come through. Oh, thank you, Andrew, for your question. You mentioned language styles in terms of fairness. Can you tell me how it works with responses in multiple languages? That's a great question. Gareth, over to you.
Oh, thanks, Kate. One thing the large language model does well is handle multiple languages, particularly in terms of understanding sentiment. So it doesn't understand the difference between English and French and German or Hindi or whatever. It's looking at, it's just token based, and it works exactly the same way in every single language. In terms of interacting with that, the chat function is multilingual. So that's baked in there, and also the summarization is all multilingual as well, because, as I say, from an AI perspective, it's understanding and returning back. It's a very much a language neutral approach in many respects. So it's moving the game on in terms of that, for sure. And for us, in terms of handling multilingual sentiment and multilingual dashboards, it has made a significant difference in the last few years in terms of making it more powerful. I've got a question for you, Kate, which is, if you've got a manager that's received AI feedback they feel defensive about, how do you support them?
Sorry, I was on mute. So how do you support a manager who receives feedback that they feel defensive about? Yeah. Well, that's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, I think that this is a challenge, whether it's AI generated or not. So in our role as coaches, we need to support our clients with the feedback, regardless of to whether it's AI generated or not. And it's about really trying to sort of understand where the manager is and work with them together to act as their sort of guide and coach, move away from that and more towards supporting them more generally, rather than worrying about whether it's AI generated or not. I think it's the same issue. It's about helping them to sort of really think more deeply about feedback that they've been given and to support them to think of what are the meaningful things that they could do that would make a difference, and things that resonate with them. If it doesn't resonate with them, it's not going to be actioned, but it's about that, getting that deeper understanding first before we move forward, I think. Did that answer the question?
Interesting. It did. Andrew posted another question there, which I now owe him a big thank you, because it's something I should have said. Every recommendation we put forward from an action suggestion perspective is supported and viewable. So it says, well, why did Prism recommend this? And it explains from a data perspective why it's recommended it, and from an organisation context perspective why it's recommended. So for us, it's really important from a trust perspective that someone who's receiving a recommendation for an action or interpretation of a set of results or whatever it might be can understand how that was derived. They may agree or disagree with it, but at least they can understand how it's been derived and recommended. So we're on every piece of recommendation or summarization, there is a summary of explaining how we got to that conclusion or how the AI has created that answer or that recommendation. I think it's a very key thing for us in terms of trust to explain or show our working effectively or show the AI is working. So thank you for that. Appreciate that. I should have said that myself.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for attending. I think that's it for the questions. I think we have managed to get through them all. But if anything else occurs to you or you want a one-on-one chat with us, we would be delighted to hear from you. But for now, I would just like to thank you all for your time, for your attention. We really appreciate you joining us today. And yeah, we would love to keep in touch and to continue this important topic. So many thanks, and we hope to speak to you soon.